Welcome back, Inebriites. This is your faithful host, Andy, and I'm going to apologize in advance. My voice is pretty shot between being outside in this wonderful smoky air and allergies and pollen and whatnot. So please bear with me if my voice isn't as silky smooth as it always is, I guess. I don't know. So today if you don't know, Inebri-art is launching a new venture this year. We're doing a Pages and Pints Small Press Expo on August 20th at the Mayflower Brewery here in Plymouth. And we're just getting together a bunch of small press, local, self-published, even a mom and pop bookstore, just to kind of get eyes on those things. We love helping creative people promote what they do, and because of that, we're bringing back on past guest who will be there, Katherine Silva. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
So I was poking around your website. You do have a new book coming out,
I
so that's always
do, I
exciting.
do.
It's a ghost
Yeah,
story.
it is.
Yeah.
It's the sequel to The Wild Dark, which came out in 2021. So it's ghosts, it's scary monsters, it's cults, and it's purgatory forests taking over the world. All kinds of stuff.
Um, is this like a three-part? Excuse me. I'm sorry. My voice is shot. Is
No,
this
you're
like
okay.
a second of a three-part? I mean, that seems to be the.
It's not actually. I'm not doing the traditional, trilogy. It's actually the final part, two-part series, main series, and then there's a lot of like little tangents though. Like I have novelettes and short stories and um, little break-offs here and there that are all related.
Mhm.
That I'm also going to keep working on and keep coming out with different things here and there, but no, main series though, these are the only two books.
So when you're creating sort of I don't know, what's the book term for cinematic universe? I mean, that seems to be the buzzword that everyone's using now.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, it's like a
Literature
shared
universe? Yeah.
shared universe. I don't know what the
Do you find it's easier to come up with stories because you've kind of created this lore for this world?
it's I think it's less about the lore and more about the characters. Like I once I've created characters, I just have a really hard time letting go of them. And and I'm like, oh, I could do, this prequel, this backstory to what happened over here with this character before they met this character. And then like randomly, I wrote a prequel to The Wild Dark last year that was about one of the characters that you meet in the first couple chapters. And then in that book, I wrote these other two characters based off of coworkers of mine who
Yeah.
are hilarious and silly. And then they got their own spin-off in a, Christmas comedy horror short story just because I felt like it. They were just I just thought they needed their own story, and other readers really enjoyed that too. So yeah, just wherever the characters take me.
Yeah. I always find it interesting with like these huge um franchises. I mean, Star Wars is a perfect example where, everyone has to have a solo movie or
Yeah,
cartoon. And just sometimes you're like, there's no story there. Like, I'm not
yeah.
interested at all in what this person is doing.
It's like if it's done well
Yeah.
and I'm interested in that character, then cool. Like for example, Andor,
Oh, Andor was great.
fantastic,
Yeah. Yeah.
fantastic. Um, like Book of Boba Fett could have been executed just a little bit better. But Boba Fett's an amazing character in that, people were interested to know what was going on. So it was it was an interesting take. Um, Maybe not one that everybody liked, but
I mean, I found with that specifically, the ones that I thought were good with were the kind of lesser known or characters that were just made up within the universe that had their own story, because it was less like, I always feel like the Obi-Wan one, it felt like they're trying to tie together things, they're trying to not cause plot holes.
Hmm. Yeah.
And there's just too much baggage. I feel like the Mandalorian. I mean, the one that jumped to mind specifically was, I've been rewatching Breaking Bad, and when
Hmm.
they put out Better Call Saul, I mean, I'm like, who wants to know more about that guy? And then I watched it, and I'm like, I want to know more about that guy. And
Yeah.
I think that's what was great about it was kind of, obviously they had a story to tell, and it wasn't. It was because they had a story to tell. It wasn't because they're like, "Ooh, this character's popular."
Yeah. Yeah. And I respect that from a storyteller standpoint. Just having characters that you you find intriguing. There is some mysticism to them. You want to know more about them, and so then they do get this um, interesting backstory. When it's just kind of like, oh yeah, we're just going to do it because it's popular with fans, and we have no idea what we're going to do.
Yeah,
Then I'm just a little more like, eh.
and so an interesting thing in a horror overlap is, I find that they do that a lot with villains.
Mm,
Like the Joker movie and Venom, and I'm like, I don't want the focus of my story to be someone that I don't like, that isn't a good
yeah,
guy. But horror is kind of different, because it's like the whole franchise is built around Jason or Freddy or Michael Myers, but they're still not, it's not their movie. It's kind of the story of
no.
everyone else.
But there's bad guys that have intrigue about them, bad guys that are on that line between sort of being like uh not even, they don't even have to like be sort of good guys slash bad guys, I guess, as long as you feel for them in some way and you identify with them, and there's a really good story surrounding it, then I can see being hooked. Like I haven't seen the Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix, but I have heard really good things about it.
I mean,
And
I don't know. I didn't buy into it. I mean, because in the end, you're like, yeah, he's a psychotic killer. Like, I don't. I felt the same way about Dexter, though. Everybody loved Dexter,
um,
and I'm like,
yeah,
he's a bad guy. Like, I don't.
I love Dexter. That's like, I'm not a huge fan of the reboot or the the new series that they just did. It was decent,
Yeah,
but I am a huge fan of the original series, and I mean they really did a great job of making you care about him, but also making it known that like, yeah, he doesn't feel anything.
yeah,
This existence of like just not having these feelings and having to put on um a show to make it seem like you're normal, to blend in, and just doing what you have to do to achieve some sort of mental peace.
yeah.
It was good. Yeah.
But I feel like
I,
that description, short of the being a serial killer, kind of fits a lot of people. That kind of feeling out of place, and
yeah, I
you know,
mean, more exaggerated,
of course,
certainly.
yeah, yeah. Like I said, no serial killing.
Yeah.
So
Um,
when you're
yeah.
writing your stories, how do you kind of incorporate all of this? Like, are you trying to write those kind of villains that, like, how do you write a villain that people find, I don't know if endearing is the right word, but like, there's certain villains, Darth Vader, Joker, you know, you can go down the list that people just connect with in unusual ways. Like, how do you write a beloved villain or monster?
So I mean, I do have both villains, human villains and monsters in my series, and the monsters are fun to write because they're just twisted, inhuman things, um, with very basic wants and needs. You know, they're
Yeah.
either hungry or they're greedy, and humans are so much more nuanced. A lot of them are villains without realizing that they're being villains because they're trying to do whatever they think is for the greater good. And so most of my villains in my series are, you know, not the Snidely Whiplash, like twisting the
Twisting their
mustache
mustache. Yeah.
villain. They're they are just trying to find peace in themselves. And that's like, as long as they're at peace, as long as they're doing what they think is right, they're fine. They don't have a lot of empathy for other people, or they just assume that what they're doing for other people is, you know, the right thing. Um,
That's kind of like one of
so
those, like, I suppose antagonist is a better word than villain, because you're right,
yeah,
like villains don't see themselves as villains, they see the hero as the villain. um so I guess you try to write, like, do you try to explain their motivation? I suppose is the question, because I mean, I love zombies, but my one thing is, don't go out of your way to tell me why there are zombies. Just be like, there are
yeah,
zombies, and I'm cool with
yeah.
that. Like, are you worried about trying to explain the motivation for your, like,
I
villains?
mean, a little bit, and that's only because, you know, when our main characters are put up against these people, they're curious to know why, you know, whoever is doing what they're doing. Um, so I think those questions, the basic why and how, are just natural.
Yeah.
Um, but really, I've got both kinds. You know, I have, spoiler not spoiler, there is a cult in this upcoming book, and the leader of said cult really thinks that they are doing the right thing by their people, and they do try to go out of their way to explain why they're doing it because they really want our
Cult followers.
heroes
Yeah.
to understand. And in the background, there is this other character with much more shadowy intentions who doesn't care what, you know, what people think of what he's doing. He's very much just interested in getting done what he has to get done. Um, and that's it. And he will do whatever he has to make it happen. So yeah, it's you have to sort of, I don't know, model it a little
Yeah.
bit.
And so when you write these characters, is there ever kind of, like, you always hear about, like, Heath Ledger famously, and other characters kind of like getting caught in the mindset and struggling, with portraying a villain. Do you ever have that from the writer standpoint, where you, like, obviously you have to kind of get in their mindset and figure out their motivation? Do you ever have kind of like that, either pervasive thoughts, or like, oh, why did I think of that, or like, yeah,
um no, I mean, I when I'm writing, I don't know how other people do it, but I do have to like get in the zone, and I have to really, really get into character. And I will do that by basically closing myself off in this office and listening to whatever music I need to listen to and just like dropping in. And I find that I can't do that really well if there are other people around. I can't really do that if I'm distracted by other things, um, especially villains, especially people who have uh, such a uh, dark outlook on things. And yeah, it's I guess it's harder with some characters than with others. We'll put it at that.
is the music that you listen to like if you're working specifically on an antagonist, do you listen to a certain type of music? Like, how does the music itself affect your writing? Like, do you have to like have certain genres for certain scenes?
Yeah, actually. It's I tend to listen to a lot of stuff without lyrics. Um, lyrics distract me when I'm writing. Um, so most of the stuff I listen to is this ambient, dark stuff that just is reflective of it's not really white noise per se, but it kind of has some of those aspects. Um, and I'll usually get like stuck on one song and then I'll just put it on repeat for a while. And where that would drive other people batshit crazy, I I love it. And
Yeah.
like I can go hours and hours and hours listening to the same song without really noticing it. Um, and it changes it, you know. I'll get on one song for a while and then I'll switch to something else for a while, but it's usually in the same genre.
Yeah. Nice. Ooh, excuse me. So, when does the Wildfall come out?
It comes out August 3rd.
Perfect timing.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
I mean, so I chose that for a few reasons. That is because one, August is my birth month and I love August, and I wanted it to be kind of near my birthday so I would have multiple reasons to just celebrate all month long. Yeah. And two, I released a short story, Orchards, last year, which does have ties to this series, and that was on August 2nd. So I kind of wanted it to be
About a year
near
apart, yeah.
that same, yeah.
So, how is it when you are kind of like meeting people in person as an author? Have you done it a lot? You have multiple books out. Like, have, me personally, I've always found it strange when I used to set up at Comic Cons or whatnot, selling artwork, and you'd be talking to people, and they'd be like, either like, "Oh no, I have this print at home on my wall," or like, "No, I came to find you specifically." Those things were always just bizarre. Have you kind of had that kind of similar experience?
So it doesn't doesn't happen very often with me. I'm still small potatoes in terms of a writer in the horror community. So when it does happen, it's usually pretty like, who, me, what?
Yeah, you almost want
Um,
to be like, "Are you at the right table? Are you sure?" Yeah.
but yeah, I went to AuthorCon um in April, which is down in Virginia, and that's a pretty huge convention that focuses on a lot of horror authors, although other authors are certainly allowed to attend.
Mhm.
And I had people who were posting, via Facebook, like, "Oh, I'm gonna come find you. Oh, I'm, can't wait to meet up with you, whatever." And that's always fun because I really like meeting readers in person. I have so many interactions on social media with readers, a lot through Twitter, a lot through Facebook. So just having that face to face is really, really nice, and getting to spend time with them and talk with them about, what they liked, what they didn't like, things like that. I'm always really interested in feedback, just generally on my stuff. I'm always looking to see what I can do differently or, you know, better. So,
And it's interesting, like we create in different ways, opposed to like say stand-up comic or a musician. They have that
mhm.
immediate response that they're performing, and they either get the laugh or the applause or people singing along. Where you're an author, and I was just, when you're explaining this, I was just thinking like, wow, man, what did authors do before social media? It's like you wrote your book, you saw how well it sold, and then other than numbers, it was just like, and it kind of made me think of podcasting. Like, I see the numbers, I know what our downloads are, I know where we get downloaded, but every time I meet someone who listens to the show, it's just like mind-bogglingly different.
Yeah.
because you're just like, oh my god, you're a real person, not just like some bot or computer that accidentally clicked on us.
Yeah. It's like I've had a few people who have messaged while they're reading or sent pictures while they're reading something, and then I'm like, oh no, I had nightmares because I'm reading this, or like what was your inspiration behind writing this? And I'm always like, yay, here.
I feel like giving someone nightmares has to be like the pinnacle of being a horror author, wouldn't it be?
Yeah. Well, it's great. I love it.
Because you're like, I live inside your brain now.
Yeah. Like these two coworkers that I've written about have both had nightmares from reading my stuff. So I love that. That just makes me like so excited, mostly because, they're big dorks, but I love them. And the fact that I've gotten in their heads, and not just, during our everyday interactions at work just makes me feel really special. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
yeah, I love it.
it's I never really thought about it, but like that's got to be like the standing ovation for horror author is I couldn't sleep for 2 days, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. One of them actually had like a fever or something and was trying to read my book and had crazy fever dreams.
Oof, that sounds even
It's
worse.
just like, all right, might not have done that myself, but I'm still glad that I scared you.
Do you have nightmares or draw from them to add, you know, for your book?
Yeah, occasionally. It's been a while since I've pulled something from a nightmare to use in a book, but I wrote a novella a few years ago called The Collection, which is about this guy who goes out to a mansion in the countryside. His dad was a collector of odd objects, and these objects all have scary things that they do. And I had a dream about being in this like very deserted country estate, and there were taxidermy animals that were coming to life around me.
Oh, cool.
And it was a really vivid, like I saw colors and the, sinewy musculature and everything. And it was really very lifelike. So I drew from that when I was working on that book. And that's kind of the last time I think that I did something like that. Most of my dreams that I have now are just, I don't remember them, or they're just not fun at
Yeah.
all.
I rarely remember my dreams. Although the one thing that I've found over the past maybe 10 years or so, I don't remember it happening before that, is it's not like I have friends that have had sleep paralysis and you
Oh
know
God.
they feel a presence in the room or see a shadow in the room. And I don't have that. Like I don't know if I've ever felt paralyzed and unable to move, but I have a recurring like audio hallucination, I guess,
Ooh.
where like in my brain I wake up because someone is knocking on my door and it is loud
Oh God.
and like a forceful knock and like very like not like, oh, did that just happen? Like I have gotten up and answered the door like numerous times and just standing there by myself.
Oh, that's weird.
It's very strange. I mean, now I've just kind of gotten used to it where like I'll hear the noise and I'll be like, oh, I guess I'm getting up now. But yeah, it's really it's so hard to explain how vivid it is.
Yeah.
And like if I'm living in an apartment, it sounds like the apartment door. If I'm living in a house, it sounds like my bedroom door. And so it's
God.
yeah,
That's a story
it's a little
right
unnerving.
there.
Yeah, like
Wow.
you can figure out where those knockings are coming from. But yeah, but like it's not ominous. It's just loud and startling.
Yeah.
You know,
Huh.
it's strange.
You actually just reminded me about a dream that I had when I think I was in high school, and I've remembered it since because it was so weird. But it was a very like shoot 'em up dream. I was in a car, there were guns, it was like being chased, very Jason Statham, high adrenaline.
Yeah.
And I remembered in my dream I got shot in the head. And it
Oh.
was this very like, I don't know, like it was such a weird feeling, like not pain, but just this like fuzzy feeling all of a sudden.
Hmm. Interesting.
And I woke up and I had fallen asleep in a really weird position so
Yeah.
that there was this pressure against this side of my head. And that was where that feeling was coming from.
Hmm.
But I remembered waking up and just being like, what? Whatever.
See, yeah, usually when I remember dreams, it's like those weird dreams where you're like at your parents' house, but it's not your parents' house. It's actually your best friend from elementary school's house, but in your brain, it's parents' house. And,
Yeah.
someone's making macaroni and cheese for it's just one of those bizarre, like, someone just shook up your brain and everything fell out kind of dreams.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how anyone could interpret that into a story, but where else do you draw your inspiration from, I suppose?
Well, interesting that you ask. I am currently trying to go through this like self exploration of childhood films that I watched that may have inspired some of my dark
Ooh,
uh,
interesting.
writing. Yeah,
Yeah.
and a lot of because I'm a 90s kid,
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff that I watched when I was a kid
Are you
was
afraid of the dark?
actually, yeah, I mean, yeah, we watched Are You Afraid of the Dark? But more of the stuff not directed at kids specifically,
Oh, okay.
like I, for instance, right now I'm in the middle of writing a nonfiction piece about Steven Spielberg's Hook, which I guess you could say is kind of a kids movie, but it's also not kind of a kids movie too.
Yeah, it
Um,
definitely kind of walked the line between the two.
it does.
Yeah.
And so I rewatched that last night and I was just like picking up on all these things here and there that I was remembering from when I was a kid and maybe not fully cognizing either, like just sort of was like, oh wow, yeah. And I feel like I've pulled from this and I've used this in things before. Um, but like also some of the horror scenes in that movie, the darker scenes in that movie that I really focused on. Uh, yeah, just very scary. Um, and most recently, I realized that the never ending story and the Wizard of Oz have been two of my most constant ones that I have pulled from without realizing it,
Yeah.
just
I mean, the never
without
ending
realizing.
story is
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
And that one more than the Wizard of Oz, I realized more recently, and I was just kind of like, oh shit, yeah, there's a lot of never ending story stuff in my work. Like I definitely pull from the fantasy um, genre and then horrify it
Yeah.
as much as I can. And yeah, it just makes me love those movies even more, respect them even more.
That's a really interesting exercise to do. I think I think I'm gonna try to start do that more because I think people should do that more in general because
Yeah.
I've thought about that and like shows that were like really influential on me as a
Yep.
kid and explain some of my eclectic nature because I mean like I loved Neverending Story. There is a Don Knotts Tim Conway movie called Private Eyes that
Oh.
way back when I first got HBO was like one of the three movies they played. And it's stupid and silly, but very in a gothic murder
Huh.
mystery kind of way. And I've gone
Interesting.
back to try to watch it. I'm like, woof, this is not good.
And,
um,
that's okay though.
yeah.
Like, there's plenty of those movies that were not good that like we still love them and we still found inspiration in them. And that's
And like I'm
fine.
almost 50 and I can still quote from that movie, and I
Oh,
haven't seen
sure.
it in 35 years probably, if not more. And it's like, what are some of the others? The Last Unicorn. I watched a ton when I was a kid.
I am ashamed to say that I have not seen The Last
Oh, it's
Unicorn.
good. Don't be ashamed because you can still watch it. I mean, it's good and it's one of those things where you watch and you're like, this is dark as fuck. And like, who
Yep.
would let a little kid watch this? And
Yeah.
um I remember there was maybe 20 years ago or so, I was watching Clash of the Titans because I that was another one that I loved as a kid.
Yep.
And I've had it on and I'm like, oh, it's a G, anybody can watch this. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot there's a scene in this G-rated movie where she walks across her bedroom topless for no reason whatsoever,
Huh.
which shows you how old the VHS tape I had of it was because that's been like long taken out. And it's
Hmm.
there's just, I mean, so much. And then like I'll think Mr. Wizard, like I loved Mr. Wizard growing up, which means, explains my love of science and
Hmm.
stuff like that. So that's a really interesting exercise to kind of.
Yeah. And I think it's partially the stuff that you watched when you were growing up, and it's also the stuff that you watched when you were kind of in that like early teens, not quite to your 16, 17, but your early teens that you,
11
you
to
started getting
15. Yeah.
into. Yeah. That also is a really major influence point too. And I found a lot more movies from that time period that have made more influence, movies and TV shows, of course, but
Yeah.
um,
And music, I feel like from that era.
and
Yeah.
yeah, music too.
And
Music is always
those tend to be the ones you get defensive and like appalled at. Like, what do you mean you haven't seen Goonies? You know,
yeah.
if you so it's interesting. I have kids, and I was at one point kind of going back, being like, "Oh, I should show them Stand by Me. I should show them Goonies.
Mhm.
I should show." And the one that popped into my head was, I'm like, "Oh, I should show them Pump Up the Volume." And then I really thought about it, and I'm like, that movie makes zero sense to any late millennial or Gen Z
Yeah.
because they'd be like, who cares if he's, I have a podcast. No one cares that, why the FBI or the FCC after him. So it's just a really such a pinpoint. Like you cannot recreate that movie
Yeah.
will never be remade.
Yeah. Product of its time.
Yeah. When you write, do you try to, I mean, I feel like everyone would try to make a timeless story, but do you ever worry about including a bit of technology or something as a major part in the story where you're like, oh,
Uh, so
should have left out that whole bit about beepers.
so I actually have done this and I feel really dumb. I fixed it recently, but my first book that I put out in 2010, I had the main character using a personal data assistant. And I went back and I republished those books. I updated them. And when I was reading through, I was like, oh my God, PDA, like what the and I was just like, no, he's gonna have a cell phone
Yeah.
now. Um and there was something else in that book too. It was God. It was almost like because I had a track phone, in 2010 I was not thinking like I didn't have a good cell phone. So I wasn't just thinking of cell phones being like you can do everything on them.
Right.
And so a personal data assistant was what this character had, and that's what he was using to access like maps and look at things. And um,
And now if you write someone with a track phone, they're obviously a drug dealer.
yeah, yeah, burn, yeah,
Burners, yeah.
burner phone.
That's funny. Yeah, it's interesting how like stuff like that can change. Like I said, I was rewatching Breaking Bad. It's not an old show, but they
Yeah.
had a bit about them uh where his son is creating a website so people can donate to his cancer treatment. And I'm
Oh yeah.
like, oh my God. I mean, it's a Kickstarter or a
Yeah.
GoFundMe, and it's just
Yeah.
it wasn't a thing then. It's just so funny how like you look back and certain things can seem so dated so quickly.
Yeah. But what I like about that is like if you were trying to go for the, 90s vibes or the early 2000s vibes and
Yeah.
that's part of the character of the book, then go for it. That's
Yeah.
cool. But if you're not, then yeah, you
Well,
do
kind of like
kind
a
of have
Stranger
to.
Stranger Things. I feel like
Yes.
they lean into it so hard though that every once in a while they'll do something or say something that I'll be like, that wasn't a thing in the 80s. Like
Yeah.
someone referred to someone else as a stalker, and I'm like, no one called anyone a stalker in the 1980s. It wasn't a thing. So, have you been watching Stranger Things at all?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm all caught up with Stranger Things. I'm waiting on season 5 with, bated breath. Uh
I kind of was. Part of it's my fault. I thought the last season was the last season, so when it didn't wrap up and end, and I'm like, I thought like I'm like, where's this gonna
yeah.
go? Like I just was kind of almost disappointed that I had to watch another season, which is strange, but
Oh, yeah. No, that last season I really enjoyed. Um I really enjoyed it. I don't know if I liked it more than the previous season though. Like the mall season to me was up here. And yes, maybe it has something to do with the whole Neverending Story song in there too. But
oh,
it
that's right.
it just I thought it was so good. Um, so we'll see. We'll see how the final season goes.
Yeah. Have you ever, being a 90s kid, felt that because it's so so weird because I was a early 80s kid, even late 70s. And last night on Jeopardy, one of the categories was 90s kids. And it was
Oh,
all like referencing to 90s kids. I'm like, how is this a Jeopardy thing? This just happened. But it really
yeah.
hasn't. Like it was a
Well,
while, it was a long time ago.
yeah.
Do you feel like because now the music I listened to in high school is on like oldies, are you ready for that time when 90s music is considered oldies or something 90s is considered retro?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm okay with it. I'm at a point where like I get it. I turn 35 this year, so I'm at peace with it.
Yeah.
Uh
I just felt like it
um
snuck up and came out of nowhere, you know?
yeah, well, when I started writing this article too, I was like, "Oh, and Hook came out in 1991 and it's been over 20 years." So, oh my God.
Yeah, I
Just
saw, I think it was a TikTok where they're like, oh, it's the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi. I'm like, that cannot be right. And I'm like, ah, shit, it is.
yeah.
You know, it's like if you were born the day it came out, you were way into your adulthood.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's a weird feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, and like my boyfriend and I, he had a list on his phone that he was going through, and it was all these 90s songs. It was like the top 50 90s songs that this, you know, online website had picked. And we were trying to guess the years that some of these songs came out, and some of them were early 90s, and it was just like, wait, really? That was that early, or this was that late, or
Yeah. It's so in your exploration of your younger self,
Mhm.
other than Never Ending Story, because that's too obvious. I feel like that's what is one
Yeah.
that's more on the obscure side that people may not be familiar with that you be like, hey, you should check this out.
um so it is still Wizard of Oz related, and Never Ending Story related. They are, but the sequels to
Are you
those
implying they happen in the
films,
same universe?
the no,
Uh,
the sequels to both of those films, I
yep.
don't think are as well known. Maybe Return to Oz more than Never Ending Story 2, but Never Ending Story 2 I watched before I watched the Never Ending Story.
Oh, interesting.
And the Neverending Story 2 was one that we always rented just on repeat as
Yeah.
kids. Um, and it is kind of a shit show of a movie.
I was gonna say I've
But
seen it and I don't remember enjoying it, but
but
I grew up on the Never Ending Story.
but man, it's dark. I mean,
Yeah.
it does take place in the second half of the book. Because the book is a two-parter.
Yeah.
And like the first movie is the first part of the book, the second movie is the second part of the book. And it it's it's good. I definitely have pulled stuff from Neverending Story 2 and
Yeah.
have written that stuff. But I feel like that's one that not a lot of people have seen. And I do think that it's worth seeing it. Um, and then, of course, Return to Oz, which
That's a
is
dark movie.
an 80s dark masterpiece. My poor brother hated that movie, and I would rent it all the time from this like sketchy movie store out in the woods, because we
Yeah.
had two in town. There was one that was within walking distance, and there was one that was like way out in the woods, Video Mania. And we would always, that was the one I would just rent from there. And he could not deal with Queen Mombi and the heads. He just couldn't handle it. And I was just like, yes, yes, give me. I want the heads, the headless queen scene. And the Wheelers, which, good God, that whoever thought of that, well, L. Frank Baum, clearly, just absolute nightmare fuel. Um, yeah, just excellent movie,
Well, I'm
super
gonna
dark and scary.
I'm gonna make a recommendation. Not dark and scary, but it does have some scary bits. Um, it was probably mid '80s, directed by Terry Gilliam. Robin Williams was in it, and it was The Adventures of Baron Munchausen.
Oh,
If
I've
you
heard of
haven't,
it.
it's amazing,
Okay.
and it is takes place in France, I think, and the town is surrounded by the Sultan's forces, and they're trying to, you know, survive. There's like completely under siege, and there's a troupe of actors that are putting on a play, and like based on how well the play goes is whether they get like thrown over the wall to the Sultan's troops or they
Okay.
get stay. And they're telling the story about, Baron Munchausen, who is this folklorish character who goes on these crazy adventures, but they're always implying that he's lying, because they're so
Okay.
ridiculous. And the play is interrupted by an elderly gentleman who claims to be the actual Baron Munchausen.
Hmm.
And then the adventure, goes on from
Okay.
there. And they go to the moon where the king of the moon is, and they get swallowed by a whale. And they go to the center of the earth and uh, meet Aphrodite and oh God, who's the Greek god of the underworld?
Oh, Hades.
Maybe it was not. Maybe it was Roman then. He was like the forger of
Oh my god.
weapons. Um,
Oh my god.
but yeah, I
I
mean,
should know this.
it's this great adventure, and it's full of like Monty Python actors, and it's weird and bizarre and fanciful and dark at times and funny, and it's
Okay.
amazing. It is a perfect movie. I watched it a million times as a kid, and even Uma Thurman's in it,
Oh wow.
like a
Okay.
18-year-old Uma Thurman.
Huh.
So it's a gem of a movie.
Okay. I'm definitely gonna have to see if I can find it somewhere.
Yeah, it's got to be streaming somewhere, I would think.
So that's what I would think too. There's a lot that are not easy to find, or you do have to like pay for them.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, I'll have to see what I can find.
yeah. But thanks for coming on the show, man. It was good to
Yeah.
catch up with you, and we'll see you on August 20th here
Yeah,
in
I'm
Plymouth.
excited.
It's going to be at the Mayflower Brewery. Ooh, excuse me. There'll be food trucks, and I think right now we have 15 authors signed up, and we have more that we're working on from all genres. We have everything from cookbooks to children's books to horror to mystery, some not like historical. I don't want to say true crime because I don't know if that's accurate. And I think we have a Western guy that's signing
Oh,
up. And then we
cool.
have a small local mom and pop bookshop that's going to be there. So we're kind of
Okay.
trying to keep the printed word relevant and have some
Awesome.
beers. I mean, that's the plan.
Yes.
So,
Awesome.
so thanks again. Where can people go to find your website? I suppose that's the last bit.
Yeah, you can find my website at katherinesilvaauthor.com. And I do have, I'm on all the different social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You can find me everywhere. And I've got a Substack too now. So
A what?
a Substack is a blog. It's a
Oh,
blog that you can subscribe to. So that's where I will be posting my nonfiction hook analysis.
oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I haven't even heard of that. I'll check that out.
Oh, all
Cool.
right.
All right. So, listeners, you can catch both of us on August 20th at Pages and Pints at Mayflower Brewery, and you can buy Catherine a beer.
Please do.
And I'll catch you guys again next week.
And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at Inebri-art.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at Inebri-art.com. Thanks again for listening.